Welcome to Behind the Muscle podcast. Today's guest is an IFBB Pro women's bodybuilder. Today's guest is Lisa Kudrey. Lisa, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, for sure, Lisa. So I'm really excited to chop it up with you. I kind of like to ask all of my guests the same two questions. So the first question I have for you is, who are a few of your favorite bodybuilders of all time?
Of course, Arnold can't get into it without acknowledging him. Anytime you think of bodybuilding, you think of Arnold Schwarzenegger, and it's no different in as far as me admiring him. One of the first bodybuilders, or actually figure competitors, that I was very much was instrumental actually in me getting involved in bodybuilding was Monica Brandt. That's way back in the day when we didn't have social media and it was just magazines. And so, she was on every cover, and she was definitely one of my favorites. And, of course, Linda Murray, huge as far as me wanting to transition into bodybuilding. And, there's countless others, of course, but those are, the few that were really instrumental in me kind of moving forward and getting involved in this industry.
Very cool. Let us know, Lisa, or tell us, please, if you don't mind, at what age you started lifting weights, and then why did you start lifting weights at that specific age?
I believe I was 15 years old, if I'm not mistaken. I was overweight as a kid and even into early adulthood. And I went to, the gym was close by my high school. And, really it was more of a thing about losing weight. And I really had no idea what I was doing with weights, but I kind of watched other people, and my brother and sister were into going to the gym as well. So I kind of, took after them in that respect as well. But is really more about me losing weight at that point than anything.
Got it. All right. So I kind of like to use that question just to transition into a little bit more of the backstory of my guest. So if you don't mind sharing with us, Lisa, just talk about your childhood a little bit more. Talk about where you grew up. Were you involved in sports? Were you involved in extracurricular activities? If so, what were they? What were you like as a young girl? What were you like as a student? Did you care about school? Just kind of paint that picture for us a little bit up to about high school, and then we'll move on from there.
All right. Okay. That's a big, a whole lot of information there, but yeah, definitely. When I was a kid, again, like I said, I was overweight. I really wasn't a very confident kid as far as, being able to assert myself, and, like the 12-year-old me or younger me would have been horrified at the thought of going on stage and posing in front of people the way that I do now. But I did really well in school. And that was another thing, I did get made fun of, not by everyone, by, you have those few kids that are just, that's what they do. That's their reason for going to school, kind of thing. So, the confidence wasn't there, but I still, I played soccer in school. I really enjoyed that. I was in figure skating. I love that kind of, all sports really. I love to do anything more individual than anything, which is where I think, the figure skating, I realized individual things were more my kind of flavor, as opposed to playing on a team. Not to say obviously that teams aren't good, but everybody has their niche. So, I did well, like I said, in school. As far as having the support at home, it was great from my mom. She was really motivational as far as I had an idea. Hey, Mom, I want to do this. And she would say, all right, how do we go about doing that? Then I got into high school, and, I had finished figure skating, and I, took an interest in boxing. And so I got into doing some boxing, which was, that's people say it's kind of weird when people hear that. They think, oh, figure skating to boxing. But really, the way I put it is you need coordination, you need all that sort of thing, and good movement in both. So I got into doing some boxing. I got more into doing dance and ballet, again, coordination and movement. So, in my opinion, boxing and things like that, they kind of work together as far as knowing how to move your body. And high school was okay. I did well the first couple years, and then I kind of got bored, to be perfectly honest with you. I'm not gonna lie, I fell asleep in class a few times, and teachers, they kind of let me sleep, which whatever the reason, I still did well, but it got kind of boring for me. And I'm not really sure why. Maybe I didn't feel like I was challenged. And I didn't play too many sports in high school. It was more about starting to work out really at the end of grade 9. And I kind of went full force with that and started to lose weight. And then I started to take more of an interest in actually lifting weights. But I still didn't really understand what I was doing. And yeah, so kind of started there as far as making the gym a regular place to be at around 14, 15 years old. And it just felt good to work out. So that's kind of how I ended up there, and making more of a consistent practice out of working out.
Hmm. So now, did you grow up in Canada then?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Sorry. I'm from Windsor, Ontario, and I was born here. I still live here. And yeah, that's pretty much. We never moved. We lived in the same house. I was in that house until I moved and went to school in Toronto. It was just, that's just, we were there. We stayed there. It wasn't. It was very much a stable environment as far as where we were. And yeah, just Windsor, Ontario, still here.
Very cool. Very cool. Now, I want to kind of ask you now, like you said that you were overweight when you were younger and stuff, and that's
Yeah.
kind of like a big reason why you wanted to kind of get into working out, lifting weights and stuff like that. Now, and then you said you got made fun of a little bit. Now, in terms of like your self-esteem or just kind of the way that you felt about yourself, talk a little bit about that, because that's a huge issue. When
Yeah.
we were growing up, that's still a huge issue, maybe even a bigger issue now because of social media. And I
Yeah.
just want any of the ladies out there, and guys too, because I've struggled with like body image issues myself. I think we all have some sort of struggles with that, male or female. But I would just like you to talk a little bit more, if you don't mind, about that, because
Yeah,
I
sure.
feel like that topic is something that can be really sensitive, touchy with people. But when somebody is willing to talk about that and open up about it, it can really be impactful, especially somebody that's an Olympian like yourself. So is that okay if you touch on that just a little bit more,
Yeah,
Lisa?
absolutely. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, like I said, I didn't have confidence as it was, just because of myself, whatever the reasons were, from being overweight, and just I was really shy too as a kid. So I think that kind of, unfortunately, people know, even kids that bully other kids, they know they're victims, kind of thing. They know who they can make fun of, who they can push around. And for me, it was the worst of it, I think, was in the 8th grade, which there was just kind of one boy who was kind of the ringleader, and the other guys kind of just followed around with him. And the funny thing was too, he was definitely not thin. So it's funny to me, it's almost like you think, I look back now and I think it was more of a, maybe not to get into psychology, because I don't know anything about that. I'm not an expert, but, obviously I don't think he was too happy with himself either. But it was really hurtful. It hurt. Like, it actually, when they say you can feel the hurt from something, it definitely felt like that. I felt it in the pit of my stomach. It was hard, because I always had this feeling of dread. Like, am I going to see this guy? Because when I didn't see him and I saw the other guys that were, part of his circle, they didn't say anything. So it was just this feeling of dread from this one person. And it really hurt when they'd call me certain names related to my weight. And, here I am, this shy kid doing well in school, and just not really prepared to defend myself, because I just did not have the confidence. I just took it, and it hurt, and I would cry sometimes, and it's tough. I don't think people understand the weight of their words sometimes, and especially kids. It really is one of those things, and it stays with you. I could tell you, vividly, any number of times that I was made fun of in detail, because it just stays with you, and it's unfortunate. I don't think about it as far as it makes me feel bad anymore, but you don't forget about those things. it's really tough because, you know, kids have a lot to deal with, especially now, like you mentioned, social media, but it's it's not something that, you know, really, I don't think people understand and take a look, step back and say, you know, how would I feel if someone did that to me? And it's just, like I said, it's a hurt that you, it's not easily left behind, and you can't really rationalize why the person is doing that. Like I said, I can maybe, you know, understand now a little bit better being an adult, but it's not a subject that I think is ever going to go away, unfortunately, but it's something that, you know, I think we do create more awareness. Social media has its good and bad, but I do think that it definitely exposes a lot of truth about that, because it is so easy to bully someone from a distance as well. So, you know, like I said, it stayed with me. It was a hurtful situation, and any other times that I was made fun of too, but that was kind of the most prominent in the 8th grade. And I do think though that it, you know, it helped make me stronger eventually. But at the time, had I not been, I did have some resilience, but if I hadn't had even a small level of resilience, I don't know what, you know, you hear about these things about kids committing suicide, or, you know, starting to use drugs and all this sort of stuff. So yeah, it was a hard time, you know. And that's really all I can say about it. You don't, you know, it was hard, and it was very hurtful. So
Well, I appreciate you touching on that for just for a minute there, Lisa. Now, um, what were you, once you kind of got into high school? You said you kind of got bored with school and stuff like that, but
yeah,
were you kind of thinking about a career or what you want to do post high school? If so, what was that? And then once you actually graduated from high school, did you go to I think you guys call it university in Canada?
yeah,
Did you just start working? What did life look like for you immediately after high school? And then we'll get back into the fitness and the lifting and the working out.
for sure. Yeah, no, I mean, I, you know, finished high school, and I had always had this idea about being a lawyer. And I think as a kid, you have these really idealistic, you know, images that present themselves to you as far as what you want to do. And you don't realize as an adult, work is actually work. So, you know, I would see all these lawyers on TV, and, you know, being a little bit like, oh, I want to do that. I'm gonna be in court yelling at the witness, doing this, that, the other thing. And then so after I graduated, I went to university, and, you know, I started in preparing to go into law, so pre-law. And, you know, I just, it wasn't for me. You know, we went to a couple of trials in high school, and we had you know, classes there to introduce you. And I just kind of followed the path, because I thought, okay, well, this is what I've thought about doing for a very long time. This is just what I have to do. And it became apparent that it obviously was not like television. And I thought, you know, I'm gonna be stuck. That was my thinking. I'm gonna be stuck doing this for however many years, and I'm gonna be miserable. And so I took, you know, a little bit of time off of school, and eventually I did go back, but I actually went completely the opposite direction and moved to Toronto and went to school for music theater. So, you know, toward a sort of a 180 there, but it was definitely where my heart was, as opposed to doing something more academic focused. And you know, I kind of took it from there. And yeah, I moved to Toronto, went to music theater, then film school. And you know, obviously I'm not a famous actor, so that didn't go too well, but I did learn a lot, and it's definitely contributed to what I do on stage now. I don't have any of the reservation that I may have had pre that education. So yeah.
Cool. All right. So you start, I guess, maybe dabbling, you know, with fitness when you're like 15 years old, when you're a teenager in high school and stuff. You said that I think you said your brother and sister maybe tried to show you a little bit, but why don't you just walk us through that evolution then? So from the time you kind of just started going to the gym or messing around with, you know, weights and stuff, to when you actually like went all in with fitness and bodybuilding and lifting. Would you kind of walk us through that transformation or that evolution, please, Lisa?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so like I mentioned, I started working out when I was 14, 15, with a friend at a gym near a high school. And again, I didn't really know what I was doing. It was kind of one of those just I'm here, I'm moving, I'm doing something, and I was losing weight, so I figured it was doing something. And then not till I was about, I would say, 19 or so, the book Body for Life came out, and it's not in reinventing the wheel, but I read about, eating smaller meals throughout the day. Because up until then, again, too, I had no idea as far as what do you do with nutrition. I really didn't know. I thought, okay, veggies, meat, and, the food guide, the food pyramids that we have are obviously not, they could use some work. But I kind of looked at that and then read Body for Life and thought, oh, wow. And there's a lot of variety here and it makes so much sense. And so I did start lifting weights there and learning a little bit more about what I could do. And, like I said, Monica Brandt was one of my idols. And so I would buy Oxygen and Muscle and Fitness hers and look at the workouts they were doing. But I didn't really have a grasp of what proper form was or what I needed to do to build a lot of muscle. I started to build some lean tissue. And then, like I said, I moved to Toronto, and, the film school thing and the music theater didn't work out. So I actually ended up going into a fitness and health promotion program, which was pre like human kinetics. And so, I learned there, and we learned about form, we learned about periodization, all the things that, I didn't know about. I could have read about myself, but, there's so much information. How do you know what direction to go in? And then from there, I didn't continue on and finish my degree in HK in human kinetics, but I got a job offer in Windsor to be a manager at Good Life, which is our big like I think probably the biggest fitness gym here in Canada. And so I worked as a manager and a personal trainer, and I did that for a few years. And then, I didn't really get serious into the weights as far as learning what I needed to do for competition and all that kind of thing until I was 29. So it took like a whole kind of 10 years where I would think, oh, I can do that. I think I can, I'd like to do that. It would be cool to be like on the cover of a magazine. But it took until I was, like I said, 29 to really to tackle that dream, I guess you could say, or and I just took it from there and learned a lot right initially, and that's how it kind of started as far as me really getting into weights and lifting. So
Now, I want to ask you because, a lot of times, I own a gym and do personal training, and, a lot of the ladies, come and they'll walk on the treadmill, they'll do the elliptical, they do
yeah,
the cardio stuff. And
for sure.
a lot of ladies say, I don't want to look like you, referring to me because, I compete in bodybuilding. I don't want to put on too much muscle and all of that stuff.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
We've all heard all that, right? Now, did you have some of that fear yourself, or were you really attracted to the muscular female from the get-go? Because again, the majority of ladies don't want to get too big, quote unquote. So expand on that for a minute, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I mean, I actually started competing in figure, and this was when it was the year that women's physique was actually introduced. So I had this idea that I have to do figure. I have to wear heels on stage. I have to do that kind of thing. I'm a figure girl, that kind of attitude. And I just as I progressed in doing competing in figure, I was doing worse and worse. But in my opinion, I was looking better because I was adding more lean muscle. I was becoming more conditioned every time I stepped on stage. But, like I said, women's physique had come into the fray, and we still had bodybuilding in the Olympia at that point. And before it was, eliminated and then brought back. But I, I was kind of unsure of what direction to go. And I really resisted going into women's physique because I thought, oh no, I don't want to do that. I don't want to look that way. I don't want to, yeah. So I did have the reservation in that regard, but it was funny. I think the last figure competition I did, I think I finished seventh, and I I literally decided 4 weeks before my first physique competition that I was going to do it, because I was on the fence about it for weeks. And then I went to the competition and I finished second. And, I thought, wow, I wish someone would have said something to me, because it was very clear that the way my body wants to go is, I get very conditioned, and I like to lift heavy. So for me, it was kind of a bit of a relief, because then I fell in love with physique. And then as I went through physique and then bodybuilding again, that, was added back into Olympia, I was getting, oh, you should probably think about going into bodybuilding. And again, I was like, oh no, I'll never go into bodybuilding. I don't want to do that. I don't want to do this. I don't want to look this way. I don't want to be that kind of, have that body type, as it is. I'm already, I think, at my limit as far as my physique goes. But then, you see people like Andrea Shaw and, a lot of the other competitors, and there's a lot more femininity, I think, now. And the judges look for that, as opposed to in the past, and not to discredit anyone who's competed in the past as a bodybuilder. But I think that kind of gave me a little bit of reassurance, even before I stepped on stage, because I saw that and I thought, okay, well, I'll try it. And I do like the way my body is, and I feel a freedom, because I thought I am going to have to work in order to catch up to some of these ladies. And at that point, kind of the fear had gone, because, at the end of the day, I'm not unhappy with the way I look. I'm actually, it's really cool for me to see the transformation year to year, show to show. So I did start out feeling that way. Certainly when I was a teenager, I thought, oh God, guys aren't going to like me because of the muscle. But at the end of the day, you got to go to where your body wants to go. So I couldn't, compete as a figure competitor. I wouldn't finish very well right now, so I kind of took it as I have to go with what I have and what, I'm going to be most successful at. But, at the same time, I developed a love for bodybuilding and for that look as well. So it took a little while, but obviously I'm definitely on board with it now. So
Yeah. Awesome. Now, going back to kind of when you went all in, you said like 29 years old is when you really kind of took that step forward to kind of get into competing and say, hey, this is something I want to pursue. Now, what was kind of the impetus, or what was kind of that final straw that broke the camel's back, so to speak, in terms of like, okay, like you went through all of your 20s, even, working in gyms and personal training, but what was it at 29 where you're like, okay, Lisa, like I'm going to do this? What was kind of that push for you to really go all in at 29?
I mean, so it sounds, when I think about it now, it sounds really silly to me, but I had kind of just gotten out of a bad relationship, and my confidence was low because of that situation. It was not a good situation, and I needed something that I felt would give me confidence, or that I could focus on as well, to take my mind off of, having felt like I was almost beaten down, not literally, but, the relationship that I was in, it was always kind of like, he was always kind of like, you can't do that. You never do that, so I began to believe those kind of things, like, and not just about competing, but other things. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to do this. Like, what am I waiting for? I'm not getting any younger. I'm 29 years old. I should do this. If I want to do this, there's no reason not to. So, I don't it wasn't the relationship itself, but it was the feeling, I think, and the just kind of having another blow to your confidence, or to just, just life in general, just when you have some sort of, life situation that kind of throws you a curveball, and you kind of don't know what direction to go in. Competing came up, and I'm lucky and I'm happy about that, because it gave me a positive, something positive to focus on, as opposed to putting my energy into feeling bad, into wondering, why did this happen, and whatever else you think about when relationships end. So yeah, it was that feeling of being kind of lost and needing something really kind of not strict, but something to kind of zero in on, as opposed to thinking about anything that was negative. So yeah.
Excellent. Okay. So, when did you, so like at 29, you kind of start getting into things seriously. Now, did you like hire a coach, or did you have a mentor that kind of like helped you with the bodybuilding aspect of things in terms of like how to train like a bodybuilder? Did you just study and learn more on your own? Talk about that a little bit. And then talk about your first competition. Did you have a coach? Did you do it on your own? Just talk about that, because that's an important aspect. I think that a lot of people, especially that are getting into bodybuilding and these type of sports, is like, well, do I get a coach? I can't really afford a coach. Do I try it on my own? So where did you start off? Did you start off on your own? Did you hire a coach right away? Talk to us a little bit about that, Lisa, please.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't have any clue what I was doing. To be perfectly honest, none whatsoever. So I spoke to one of the other trainers at the gym that I was at, who was, really into bodybuilding, and I asked him. I said, "Hey, would you coach me?" And he said, "Well, I don't compete, but I know somebody who I can refer you to." So I started working with a coach, and he was a very old school kind of guy. So, at some points I was eating like pasta in the morning and fish, and it was not a pleasant experience. Just very old school in his approach, which again, that's, it is what it is. Everybody has their way of doing things, but I did work with him throughout and into my first competition. And, I also worked with someone he had trained as far as learning how to pose. Because again, I had no idea. Like they're like, "Oh, flare your lats." I had no idea. What do you mean flare my lats? I am. And they're like, "No, you're not." And, of course you really, I think, especially when you start out, it's not wise to not get someone who can direct you, because at least you have some idea of what the expectation is. You need to, again, learn how to pose, because posing and presentation, that's huge. If you don't know how to present yourself, you can finish last if you maybe should have finished first. But yeah, I worked with that coach for the first competition, I think for a couple of competitions after, if I'm not mistaken. And then I kind of parted ways with him, more or less because I wasn't sure about continuing to compete, because as I mentioned, I was finishing worse and worse. So I did work with the coach, because again, I had no idea what I was doing. I was like Bambi on ice when my first competition, because the quarter turns were so fast, and I was just kind of like fumbling around up there trying to keep up, with these girls who had done it X amount of times before. So yeah, it was definitely a good decision, because I have no idea, what would that have looked like had I not had a coach. But I also don't think I would have done it without a coach at that point, because I really didn't have any sort of clue what was going on, anything about competition. So
Now I want to ask you about coaching, especially, with the opportunity. I don't have a whole lot of ladies, females on the podcast. That's just kind of the way it goes. But so since I have you here, I want to ask you, because obviously with females, there's there's the hormone aspect of things. There's a lot more, I feel like, that ties into competing than maybe with us guys, right? Now, so from all of your years of experience now, and having some different coaches and obviously competition experiences, maybe talking to the ladies out there, like, what would you suggest now looking back when you got in at 29? Is there something or a few things that you would suggest to the ladies out there when they are looking for a coach, and maybe they are that Bambi on ice skates like you were? They have no clue about anything. What would you suggest, or what are some things that they can look for in finding the right coach from the get-go? Because there's a lot of great coaches out there, and there's a lot of bad coaches out there. And again, social media kind of puts all of that coaching in a spotlight in a greater manner. So what are your suggestions on that for the ladies listening?
I think the most important thing is talking to people directly who have had that person as a coach. You can look at somebody's record of how their competitors have finished, and yes, that's great, but you have to talk to the individual competitors and find out what their experience is, because at the end of the day, that coach has to suit your needs. So if you're going to get somebody, you know, there are people, unfortunately, in this industry that it's just about the money. You know, there are X amount of competitors that they can't actually handle and be individual with. And it's just like, okay, send the money, send the money. Where's the payment? I definitely earlier in my career had that experience a couple of times, and it's really disheartening because you put everything you have into competing, and if you can't get the kind of emotional support you need, or that person doesn't work the way that you prefer as far as even check-ins and everything else, it's going to become more of a stressor than it is anything else. So, and I learned that over time, because I would just take advice from one person, or the person would say, I'd say, who's your coach? Oh, awesome. Do you think you could put me in touch? But more often than not, that turned out to be a bad situation, because it was just the one person that I'd spoken to who was in prep with the coach. So of course they're not going to say, this was my experience or whatever, because they're in the midst of getting ready to compete. Only after that person maybe has a little bit of a bad experience or has a good experience, whatever the case is, will they actually be honest and open up about it. So that for me is what I would suggest, is really reach out. And because we do have social media, you can reach out to someone on Instagram, on wherever, whatever social media venue you want to, and you can ask that person questions. And it's super important, because like I said, if that person doesn't suit your needs, it's going to be discouraging and more of a negative experience than anything, because everybody has a different style. I mean, nobody's reinventing the wheel by far, but everybody's, it's that relationship. It's the same thing like with personal training, right? Someone develops a relationship with you, and either it works or it doesn't. Same thing with coaching. It's the same idea. So it really is important to talk to people and get to know what their experiences are, and if that suits the way that you work and how you think that you will be able to do your best.
Excellent. Love that. Great words of advice there. Now let's, I want to get a little bit deeper into competing. So you start off with figure, you start not placing well. You're kind of like at a place like maybe like, am I going to continue to do this? So why don't you talk about when things really started to change for you, Lisa, in terms of placings? Was that when you went into women's physique? Just talk about that. And then why don't we really get into the bodybuilding talk? Like when did you kind of like transition into women's bodybuilding? Was that just recent? And just talk about maybe the evolution of that experience for you. And just talk about your competition history, maybe some of the highlights up to the point when you won the Toronto Pro earlier this year.
Sure. Yeah. So, like with physique, women's physique, that was when I actually started placing better, and realized that this was more my niche than figure, of course. And, I guess my first big show for me that I won, as an amateur, was we had what we no longer have, which is provincials. So for Ontario, I won that show. I won the overall. And, I think that was 2017, if I'm not mistaken. And then I went to nationals, which, that was competing for a pro card. I finished second, was a little disappointed, but, of course I was doing very well in that category. I took a year off in, 2018. My mom was sick and unfortunately passed away. So I regrouped and decided I wasn't going to compete anymore. But then, of course, that's a reaction to, whatever happens in your life. But then I came back even stronger and thought, no, I'm going to do this. So then, 2019 came, I competed for my pro card. I won the open overall. I won masters overall. So it was it was really vindication for me, because I basically won everything I could have won at that show. And it felt great. It was really the up that I needed. And so at that point, that was October 2019. And then of course the world fell apart the next year. So I had intended to compete at the Toronto Pro in 2020 as a physique competitor. But as time went on, in the next couple of years, I was working out, wherever I could, because gyms were closed here. We would have a shutdown, things would open, shut down. It was very inconsistent. So, I was lifting heavier. I was lifting whatever I could, wherever I could. And I was putting on a lot of size. And one of my friends said, I think you maybe should consider bodybuilding. And of course, like I said, I fought back and I thought, no, I don't like the posing. I don't want to do this. I don't want to be that way. I definitely not where I want to be, but as time went on and, 2021 came around and it looked like, okay, some competitions are going to happen, and there was a way for me to finally travel to the States, challenging as it was, I was determined to do it. And so I went from winning my pro card as a physique competitor to making my pro debut at the Linda Murray show in Savannah as a bodybuilder for the first time. So I stepped on stage as a bodybuilder for the first time as a pro. So it was just, I had some great posing coaching for that. Obviously I needed it because, the posing different. I had knew about it. I knew what it looked like, but knowing what you need to feel and where to place this foot, that hand, whatever, is a different story. So like I said, I fought it kind of tooth and nail for those 2 years, but then I looked at myself as I was leaning out and I thought, yeah, I think this is the right decision. I'm finally at peace with the fact that this is where I belong. So, again, like I said, you got to go with where your body goes. And it's not always where you think it's going to be. So you end up wherever the muscle takes you, I guess, because that's where the success lies. So, yeah.
So now I want to go back to when you won your pro card. Was there, before you won your IFBB pro card, was there a point before then that was like your main focus? Or are you the type of person where it's like, hey, I'm just going to bring my best package, the best version of myself, and wherever the cards fall, they fall? What was your mindset before you got your pro card? And then once you got your pro card, what was kind of your mindset in terms of, now I'm an IFBB pro, like, what am I going to do with this? Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah. Like for me, I guess I don't think that I did think in the back of my mind about becoming a pro, but each show that I do, I try and stay laser focused on that. So if at the end of the day, before that, if it wasn't that the pro card was, the ultimate prize at the end of the day, then that wasn't where my thinking was. I mean, when I did Canadian nationals and the pro card was on the line, yes, that's what I was thinking about. But I was also thinking about, okay, but am I pro worthy, I guess? So, like, I guess they kind of went hand in hand. But definitely for, when I did get my pro card, because I hadn't been on stage in a couple of years. And for me, that was weird. I'd gotten so used to competing every single year. And so, I guess in my mind for that show, I did both open and masters in an attempt to just, say, oh, maybe I'll get my pro card in one of those categories. So I did focus on getting my pro card, but I also knew that I needed to step up and take it a step further as far as where my physique was, in order to make it kind of like unquestionable that I'm here, I deserve the pro card. And that's kind of my mindset. Maybe that, I don't know if that fully answers your question, but it's just kind of like this dichotomy of having, that mindset of doing your best and bringing your best package, but also at the end of the day, there is something on the line. So, and then after getting my pro card, I was focused on, okay, when's the pro show? Then my mind switches, what's next? What's my next pro show? And it wasn't even about getting to Olympia. It was just about what's the next show, because at that point I thought, I'm a small fish in a big pond now, a much bigger pond. So a worldwide pond. So I thought, now I'm just focusing on whatever the pro show I'm going to do is, and that's kind of where my thinking was. And then, from there, after competing and, not doing too bad as a pro to begin with, I finished fourth at, my first pro show, and then, finished second and third. And then I thought, okay, no, now I don't like not winning anymore. This is not okay. So, and, I guess that's just the competitive edge in me, and it's not about, just winning, but I know what I can do. And I guess that's the main thing about it, is that I know that I can push myself that much more and be that much better. So sorry if I went off on a tangent there, if I didn't answer
No, you
completely.
got it. You got it. You hit the nail right on the head. I love it. Now, let's talk about your win at the Toronto Pro in 2022 earlier this year, like just a month ago. That solidified you as a 2022 Olympian. So that's like going to a whole nother level as a professional bodybuilder. So talk about I mean, obviously winning the Toronto Pro, that's like in your backyard. So that's got to be one feather in your cap. But talk about that day, talk about winning that pro show, Toronto Pro of all things, and then just talk about your mindset heading into the Olympian. Just like, where is your mind? Like, what how much does this mean to you? Just touch on that for a minute, please, Lisa.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, like I did the Toronto Pro actually wasn't planned. I did the Indy Pro 3 weeks prior, and it was it was a disaster for many reasons. There was just it just posing wise, it wasn't good. I didn't I had a posing coach, and things didn't end up working well as far as my being able to depend on somebody, and again, at the end of the day, I'm the one that didn't do well on stage. But there was a few reasons that things didn't go well, and I knew that. And I on the Sunday after, so it was on a Saturday, I was really disappointed, and I needed some personal vindication, not even again about, we talked about the winning, and I talked about how that's important. It wasn't even that. It was that I knew I could do better, and I needed to do that. So I, really went back, worked on my posing, worked on my presentation, and going into the Toronto Pro, my confidence was completely a 180 from what it had been at the Indy Pro, which again, for many reasons was kind of, I was fearful of being on stage in that show, which I never feel that way when I compete. So I got on stage at the Toronto Pro. I went out. I felt great about my presentation round. I felt really good, very, very confident that I had done my best. So that for me was awesome. That was what I needed. I needed that charge again. And, then we got into doing, obviously, well, the comparisons were very short. But, and there were only 4 of us. So really the way that they had placed us, I thought, okay, either I'm first or second. And for me at that point, then I started thinking, oh, well, I really don't want to be second. You know what I mean? And so, at the end of the day, I went out and just did my routine, which, that went awesome. And I was happy about that. And then, when they announced me as the winner, I don't even know what the feeling was. It was just kind of it was not a relief, but it just, I had this like huge smile on my face, to the point that I almost hurt, because then I thought in that moment, I'm like, oh my God, they said, oh, and you're on your way to Olympia. And I thought, oh my God, I am on my way to Olympia. So, for me, again, I don't know that the actual scale of what I'm getting myself into has sunk in yet. But what I do know is that I have my work cut out for me as far as wanting to be where at a certain level when I get there. So for me, it's in the back of my head, me thinking about Olympia, but right when I came back, took a couple of days off and then got right back into the grind again and got into that work mode, because, yeah, it's in December, but at the end of the day, my eye is still on that, and my mindset is positive and grateful, because, to go from competing as a figure competitor and then to getting my pro card, and now, I always said I'm going to get to Olympia, but I think, until you actually get to that point, you don't understand, or I at least didn't understand how amazing, as far as me being able to accomplish my goals and get a dream really would be. So my mind is just, it's on the gravity of the situation, but it's also just on the work that I have ahead of me, and what I need to do on a daily basis.
What's your personal goal in terms of placing and what you want to accomplish at the Olympia this year, Lisa?
I mean, I do stay, and regardless of what it sounds like, I do stay top 5. That's a lofty goal, of course, very lofty goal, but I set my sights high. And, as far as that goes, I do know that I'm working on adding, lean muscle and seeing how much I can put on in that time, as far as looking good on my physique and in the areas that I need to target. So that is my goal. I'm going to put it out there and say it because I do believe that I have the potential for that. It's, I do need to do work, which I'm okay with that, because that's part of the beauty of this sport, is that you can never stop learning. You can never stop evolving. So top 5, and that is my goal. So
Excellent. All right. So I want to ask you here, now that you're a pro, bodybuilder, you've qualified for the Olympia, you're going to step on the Olympia stage. Do you ever, like, just in your own mind, in your own life, as you're just going through your day and your routines each day, do you ever, like, think about like the old Lisa, or Lisa in her mid-20s or whatever, when, maybe you were just trying to figure things out and life was throwing you some curveballs, or maybe even back further, like what we talked about in your childhood, like getting made fun of and being overweight? Do you ever think about that stuff, and like how far you've come over the years? Do you ever allow your mind to wander back there, or are you just so focused on the here and the now?
no, I mean, I do, because like, it's such an extreme from where I was, especially as a kid, and even just the things that I do now, like I don't have a lot of fear as far as not being willing to try new things and do that kind of stuff. I mean, I always say, earlier this week on Monday, I went skydiving, and 12-year-old me would have been horrified at that, like, but me now, I'm like, this is amazing. Me going to Olympia, seeing myself on stage half naked would have been like, oh God, like, so I do think about that, because I do realize that I've come so far, as far as having, the confidence, and just the not being apprehensive about wanting to progress, because if, fear is healthy to an extent, but I think sometimes it can really hold you back, and keep you from really living your life to its fullest. So I don't know what the change was and what happened as far as me growing that confidence. I think it was partly, moving away from home for school, that built up my confidence, just kind of snowballed over time. But I definitely think about it, because like I said, the younger me would have been like, oh my God, like, saying, are you sure that, do you want to do that? So it's definitely something that rings true in the back of my mind, because it is a big progression, and a lot of, personal growth over the years, because if I still had the mindset that I did way back when, even, as a teenager, early 20s, I wouldn't be doing this at all. I'd be way too fearful even of what people would think about me. So, yeah.
What do you feel like bodybuilding, what are a couple of the main things that you feel like bodybuilding has, like, taught you throughout the experiences that you had as a competitor, and even just, the lifestyle and the training? What are a couple of those things that you've learned, or you feel like bodybuilding, like, gave you this and you wouldn't have been able to learn it through anything else?
I think, like I said, it did increase my confidence even more. It made me just, I guess, more secure as a person about myself. I guess that is confidence, but just having that, really just being happy with myself, as far as not worrying about what other people think, other than the judges on stage, of course. But and also to discipline, of course, because there's, I guess, people think they say, oh, you sacrifice so much, but I don't really feel like it's a sacrifice, because if I felt that way, I would feel almost like it's a negative experience. I'm choosing to do this. So it's taught me discipline. It's taught me, appreciation for the way that my body functions and what I can do. And just, overall, it's just given me, a sense of community, and it's taught me that, you can constantly learn, and you're never going to stop learning. So I'm grateful for that. As far as, so I guess it just teaches me on a daily basis. I learn new things about myself every time I train. So there's just so much that it's given to me. I guess I could go on forever about it, but that's kind of the crux of it, is the discipline, and, the confidence that I've developed.
Do you also feel like there's an identity that you've been able to attain or step into or grab a hold of through bodybuilding? Like has bodybuilding really kind of given Lisa like a strong identity, or not per se?
Yeah, I think so. As far as me just showing up, I guess it's just I feel that I have a presence now that I didn't have before bodybuilding. And again, I guess that pertains to having confidence. But I feel that it's given me the identity of just being able to be present, as far as just here I am, this is me, and take it or leave it. So I guess that's that's my identity, because before I just would have been oh God, what's everybody thinking, and I don't know, I think everybody at some point experiences that, but I definitely don't have that. That doesn't fall into me as far as how I appreciate and identify myself. I just know who I am as a person, so it's given me just that security, in whatever situation I happen to be in.
Beautiful. All right. So we're going to I want to wrap up here in a couple more minutes, but let's get into some training talk, because I think that's something that you thoroughly enjoy.
Yeah.
Now, you've talked about already throughout just kind of our conversation today that you like to lift heavy. So talk about how you kind of started off training. How has your training evolved over the years? And then maybe just talk about just this last prep, like what was your split? How were you training? What are you kind of focusing on going into the Olympia in terms of like body parts that you want to bring up or balance out? So training, how it started, how is it now? How was it for this last prep? How is it going to be during the prep for the Olympia?
Sure. Yeah. When I first started training, I think about the amount of weight that I was lifting then, and it's kind of like it's almost like baby weight, right? Because I really didn't know either as far as what I should be doing training. The coach I had when I first started, he did help me a bit with coming in and kind of doing the splits with me, but there wasn't a lot of instruction as far as how do you squat, how do you deadlift, how do you do that kind of thing. It was more machine focused, and really high rep. So that the training as I went on, it was about I had to read. I spoke with a lot of people who were bodybuilders themselves, to see kind of what their angles were on training and what their opinions were of what I should do. And over time, I got stronger and stronger, and I realized, okay, I don't need to do 5 million reps of this. And definitely, if I'm trying to add some lean muscle, I'm going to have to lift some heavier weight at some point. So, my split when I started, I don't even know what it was. It was kind of like whatever I felt like that day, because I really didn't have any sort of set plan. But, going into the Toronto Pro, my split was, Monday I would do shoulders. Tuesday was usually, hamstrings, glutes. Wednesday was usually like a back day. Thursday was off. Friday was, chest and arms and a little bit of shoulders just to bring those up. And then Saturday was, quads, squats, legs basically. And then Sunday, at the time was still cardio because I was in my prep. So, that split has changed a little bit, because, I do need to add some size to my legs, my hamstrings, quad sweep, of course. And shoulders has always been something that I've struggled with. Back has never been really an issue that kind of came to me easily, not that I'm not still working on it. But shoulders I'm definitely still working on. Legs are a huge thing. So I've shifted my leg day to Sunday because I really push heavy. So I work on Saturday, and I know that I can't be my best and do my best that day on my legs. So I shifted that to Sunday. So I'm well rested, well fed. I've had some really good workouts on Sundays. Monday I do keep as a shoulder day, just because it tends not to be my favorite training day. But it's the beginning of the week, so I still do have a lot of energy, and I know I still push hard. So I did keep that there. Hams and glutes, I actually just switched to the Thursday and then switched my off day to Tuesday, just because, I find after those 2 days where I'm really pushing myself, I need a little recuperation before I can get into doing back, and hamstrings and glutes. So, it's shifted a little bit, but I've definitely gone back to doing a little fewer reps, because in the 3 weeks between having done the Indy Pro and then having done Toronto, obviously I was lifting heavy still, but obviously within reason. So as not to be injured, because I was very tired after the Indy Pro. But, even in going into the Indie Pro, I was still lifting heavier, but, keeping track of the weights that I was doing. And now I've surpassed those. So, it makes me feel like I'm even at this point going in the right direction. And, at some point, if the growth stops happening, I'll obviously reevaluate and change that. But, those are just a couple subtle changes that I've made, but they seem to be going well, as far as the direction that I'm looking to do and the gains that I want to make.
Now, for each individual body part, do you kind of train all body parts the same, or do you find that your body maybe responds, to higher reps better, like one part over another part? How does that? What does that look like? Do you do like an all out top set? What is actually the actual structure of your training?
Well, for legs, I definitely find I do better. I see more results with heavyweight at the beginning of the workout. I do at the end try to add some drop sets in, or supersets to really pump the legs. But I do find that the growth happens when I lift heavy, when I squat heavy, hack squat heavy, even, hams and glutes. I deadlift heavy, hip thrusters heavy, all those things. I tend to respond better as far as my lower body when I'm doing heavier weight. And then, I add a little bit in the end for a burn, like I said, with some higher reps. Shoulders, I still lift heavy, but I do find that I get a lot of growth from higher reps and from supersets and drop sets. And so I tend to go in that direction as far as shoulders are concerned. And then, with biceps, I also find I need to lift heavy. Triceps are never an issue for me, but biceps are an issue. So, it depends on obviously, again, what body part I'm doing. My back has never been an issue. I can lift heavy and do quite a few reps lifting heavy, in that regard. It's always been a strong body part for me. So it depends on whether or not I start out with a lot of pull-ups on my back day, or if I'm doing bent over rows. It just depends on whatever I'm starting with and what I lean into, because I might end with a little bit, as far as, again, higher reps, but usually a little bit heavier with the back day as well. And yeah, so, there are certain things certain methodologies that I do employ for certain body parts. But yeah, everybody's a little bit different, right? But for me, again, lower body, heavy is where it's at, and upper body, I can get away a little bit more with doing the higher reps. But again, it depends on each specific muscle group.
Excellent. All right. Now, in terms of like your nutrition and eating, is that all kind of like the standard chicken rice bodybuilding diet, or have you found some different foods, or maybe a different methodology to kind of get you slice and dice, so to speak?
Well, I mean, of course, there is some chicken and rice in there just because it's easy and convenient, and because I know how much of something I'm eating just by looking at it, pretty much. But I've reintroduced, obviously, ground beef, and I got rid of the fish. I'm tired of the fish right now. Pulled pork. There isn't really anything that I've changed. I do find now I don't have any magic secrets or anything too off the wall, but I do find now that I'm struggling a little bit more with gaining weight with my metabolism. So I did add in, like, I am using a mass gainer, which I haven't done for a very long time, because I just can only eat so much food. So that's been the one thing for me. It's not again, not reinventing the wheel. It's not any magic trick. It's just about getting the number of calories that I need as far as my carbs and my fats and proteins are concerned in order to add size. So yeah, no tricks, just a lot of eating, more variety now, and then just the mass gainer, which makes it a little easier for me as far as getting all my meals in as well. So
cool. All right, so we're gonna wrap it up here. I do want to ask you in terms of when you're in between competitions, so you're for the Toronto Pro, I think was in June, and then the Olympia is in December, so that's quite a break. But maybe when you're completely done competing this year, going into 2023, do you ever, I guess they call them now, like go through like health phases where you get your blood work done and hormones checked and all that type of stuff? What does that look like for you? And I'm asking this specifically to you because you're a female, and I want any ladies that are watching or listening to understand what they need to do, whether they're a pro or not, if they're going to start competing. and things like that, what they should do, or maybe some suggestions they should take from you to make sure their health is dialed in.
Yeah, I mean, I do get blood work, which I think is important anyway. Because oftentimes I think, people have a misconception about bodybuilders and bodybuilding, when really we we're very on top of our fitness and our health. You have to be. And it's just about doing due diligence for what you're doing and what you're putting your body through. So at the end of the day, regardless of what you're doing, what category or anything as far as prep goes, you're putting your body under constant stress. So getting blood work is important, because you need to see what's going on with your body, so that that you're in optimal health to keep doing this. Because your body is literally, if your body's not working properly, you can't do this sport. You're not going to get where you want to be. So blood work is definitely important. I do take some time off after the competition, and for about a month after, I go to the gym, but I take it a little bit easy, because my body needs a break. It's been put through however long that prep was. I don't even know at this point, just having competed pretty close to back with the shows that I did. So blood work is definitely important. Rest is huge. So you don't think that you have to like hop right back in the saddle. You really do need to give your body a break, because not only that, but you need to get stronger again. We're kind of, we look our best, and there's that, it's not look your best, feel your worst. I've heard, I don't think I feel my worst, but you definitely are a lot weaker than you would be when you're fully rested, not depleted and all that sort of thing. So blood work, rest, and then just in general, paying attention to how you feel and what's normal for you. Because if something feels wrong to you or off, it's just like when you're doing a set and you're lifting. If something feels wrong, chances are it probably is. So pay attention to yourself, pay attention to your body, how it's working. And, if it's not a positive change, or it's not something that you feel good about, go get it checked out, whether it's an injury to a muscle or whatever the case is. But pay attention and get regular blood work. It's not a bad thing for anyone.
Right. All right. So the kind of the last question I have for you, Lisa, and then I'll kind of give you the opportunity to share any final thoughts or any final words that you have. How far do you want to take this bodybuilding thing? How much longer do you think you're going to compete? Do you kind of have like an end game or an end goal in mind? If so, what is that? And then I just personally, like, outside of bodybuilding, because obviously we all have a life outside of bodybuilding, whether we're a professional or not. What do you want to, where do you want to take your life? What do you want to do, like, business wise? You want to kind of take the pro bodybuilding thing and be able to capitalize this business wise? Where are you at personally? So professionally as a bodybuilder, then personally, what's the future hold for you, Lisa?
Yeah, so I mean, I have kind of put an end date on it. I'm going to be 40 this year, and I'm thinking about it. I'm like, I don't want to go. I want to maybe do it for another 3 years. That's what I say. Is that the case? Well, usually I don't know, but I also don't want to be, I don't want to be up there at 50 years old doing this. It's really hard on my body, and it takes a toll on my body, and life wise too, because really it is inevitably your life. We do have lives outside, but there's a limitation on that. And so, I like I said, tentatively another 3 years after this year. And as far as what I'm doing professionally, I still, I love personal training. I really do enjoy that. I don't feel like it's a job, which is, a lucky thing, because I love what I do. So I want to continue doing that, but I want to grow my website, which has kind of been on hold, and start doing and branding things that I use, like resistance bands when I'm squatting or doing hip thrusters, and different things that I really use that I can put my label on and grow in that aspect. And who knows otherwise, creating supplements down the line, which has been something I've always thought of, but it has been a bit of a time issue, and of course, and making connections, which I think I'm going to have a much better opportunity at doing now that I'm a pro and that I'm headed to the Olympia. So I'm definitely looking at growing my business and creating a brand for myself from this, because I love this industry. I love everything about bodybuilding. I love just seeing people grow in this industry, and it really is a community that I love being in. So I want to be a part of that in the business aspect as well. And I think that if I make the right connections and I do that, the work and, make the background connections that I need to, I'll be able to make that a success as well. So that's the direction that I'm headed. And again, who knows what'll happen. So.
Right. Yeah, I remember when I was younger, like in my 20s and stuff, you go into like a job interview, they'd be like, where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Yeah.
I mean, even now,
Yeah.
in my mid 30s, I'm like, if you ask me that question, where do you see yourself quitting in 5 years? I'm like, dude, I have no clue. But even
I know.
back in my 20s, I was like, 5 years? I was like, I
Yeah.
don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. How can I answer that question?
Yeah,
So
definitely.
I hear you on that. It's just, it's always kind of cool to see where people are at in terms of their mindset for the future. So Lisa, sure. Before we close it out here, first of all, I just want to say thank you again for coming on the podcast, sharing your story. It's great to have a lady on here, a professional bodybuilder going to the Olympia. It's cool to hear your story. Before I do the outro here, if you have any final thoughts or any final words that you kind of want to share with all of us, the platform is yours. Any shout outs, any sponsors, website, anything that you want to leave us with, make sure you give us your Instagram as well. The platform is yours, and then I'll do an outro and we'll be done.
Perfect. Yeah, no, I guess my outgoing advice would be, don't be afraid to try something new. Because, you might find that you find your place like I did. So if, bodybuilding or competing is something you're thinking about, take a chance or go to a show and see what it's about. And even anything else, don't be afraid to give things a try because, life is short, I guess. And I definitely want to give a shout out to my friends, Crystal and Mark Rondon, who've been amazing and instrumental in especially leading up to the Toronto Pro Show in helping me and building my confidence. The Crystal Suit, who out of Orangeville in Ontario, Canada, who are my sponsors for my suit. And just my family and my friends for kind of putting up with me through all of this, which is not always the most pleasant situation. So and my Instagram is at IFBB Pro Lisa K _fit. And check it out. I have some workout videos, some recipes and things on there as well. And I try to add a tip or two as often as I can. So check it out.
Excellent. So the best place to kind of touch base with you, if somebody wants to reach out to you from this podcast, is just to touch base with you through Instagram then?
Yeah, like if you direct message me on Instagram, that's usually the best way, because then I can, check that on a daily basis and I'll get back to you pretty quickly. And yeah, that's pretty much the social platform that I mainly use. So yeah, reach out to me on there and I'll get back to you. So.
All right. Excellent. So for all of you who are tuning into this episode of Behind the Muscle podcast, just so you guys know, anytime that you guys are watching or listening to an episode of the podcast, you can always go down into the show notes again, whether that's YouTube or iTunes, wherever you're listening to this. I always make sure that my guest's Instagram is in the show notes, and then also Behind the Muscle podcast Instagram is in the show notes. So if you want to find Lisa, if you want to connect with her, if part of her story has maybe touched you or impacted you, if you want to just reach out to her through Instagram, just scroll down into the show notes and you'll find her Instagram handle down there. Before we close out with Lisa today, a couple quick things. Thank you guys again for tuning into another episode of Behind the Muscle podcast. If it wasn't for all of you, the podcast wouldn't exist. I appreciate every single one of you. If you guys would just hit that subscribe button on YouTube, I'd greatly appreciate that. That's really important because I release all these episodes first on YouTube, and then I'll distribute them to iTunes, Castbox, and other major podcast platforms. And then also take this episode of Lisa's, share it on your Instagram stories. Make sure you tag Lisa, tag Behind the Muscle, so that we know that you listened specifically to this episode and found great value in it, in which I know you did. And then finally, I will leave you all with this. Remember, behind the muscle, there's always a story. We'll catch you guys later.